My husband ran off with my sister, then returned with a jaw-dropping request. 6 weeks ago, I came home from my nursing shift to find a note on the kitchen counter. Just 2 sentences in Brad's handwriting. I'm in love with Lily. I'm sorry. My husband of 4 years had left me for my younger sister. No warning, no fight, no gradual drift apart. Just gone. He'd cleaned out his closet, taken his laptop, and disappeared with the person I'd trusted most in the world besides him. I called Lily immediately, and she answered on the first ring like she'd been waiting. Her voice was shaking when she said she never meant for it to happen, that they'd fallen in love and couldn't fight it anymore. I asked how long it had been going on. 8 months, she whispered. Since last Christmas, when Brad had helped her move into her new apartment, I hung up on her and spent 3 days in bed, calling out sick from work, ignoring texts from my parents and friends. Brad's family called to apologize, his mother crying and saying she'd raised him better than this. My parents were devastated but kept trying to see both sides, saying love was complicated, which made everything worse. The divorce papers arrived 2 weeks later via certified mail. Brad was letting me keep the house and wasn't asking for anything, which felt less like generosity and more like guilt. I signed them without reading the details and sent them back the same day. Then yesterday, Brad showed up at my door at 8 in the morning. I almost didn't recognize him at first because he'd lost maybe 30 pounds and had dark circles under his eyes that made him look sick. I stood in the doorway in my scrubs, about to leave for work, and stared at him like he was a stranger. Can we talk? He asked. Just 5 minutes, please. His voice cracked on the please, and despite everything, some stupid part of me that still remembered loving him felt concerned about how terrible he looked. I let him in but didn't offer coffee or a seat. He stood in my living room twisting his wedding ring, which he was still wearing for some reason. I need to ask you something, he started, and I laughed because the audacity was almost impressive. You need to ask me something? You left me for my sister and now you need something? He flinched but kept going. It's important. Life or death important. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from Lily. Her first message in 6 weeks. Please listen to Brad. I know you hate us, but this is bigger than that. We wouldn't ask if we had any other choice. I stared at my phone, then at Brad, trying to understand what was happening. What does she mean any other choice? Brad pulled out his phone and showed me something. Medical documents with terms I recognized from my nursing training. Test results, doctor's notes, appointment schedules. Then he explained what they needed and why they'd come back and why it had to be me specifically. Over the next 3 days, more pieces appeared that didn't make sense. Brad's parents called asking me to please consider their request, crying and desperate in a way that felt wrong. My parents showed up at my house with Lily, who looked as awful as Brad, thin and scared and refusing to meet my eyes. There were papers that needed signatures, appointments that required my presence, legal consultations with lawyers who kept using words like time-sensitive and irreversible and informed consent. Brad kept showing up with more documents, more test results, more proof of why this had to happen now. I started noticing things that seemed off. Brad's car had hospital parking passes stacked on the dashboard. Lily had medical bracelets from 3 different facilities. Their story about falling in love had holes in the timeline that didn't add up. The 8 months she'd mentioned didn't match the dates on the paperwork Brad kept showing me. Something bigger was happening, something they weren't fully explaining, and whatever they wanted from me was going to cost more than they were admitting. The rest of the story is on my channel or linked below. I stare at the pile of documents in my hands, medical terms jumping out at me in stark black and white. Leukemia, aggressive, terminal without intervention, bone marrow transplant, compatible donor needed urgently. You're the only match, Brad says, his voice breaking. We've tested everyone else in the family. I look up from the papers, my nursing training kicking in despite my emotional turmoil. The diagnosis looks legitimate, acute myeloid leukemia with a particularly aggressive presentation. The pathology reports show blast cells at dangerous levels. The oncologist's notes detail failed rounds of chemotherapy. Lily has leukemia? My voice sounds distant, like it's coming from someone else. Brad nods, running a trembling hand through his hair. It was diagnosed 9 months ago. She didn't want anyone to know at first. She was trying experimental treatments, hoping something would work before you had to come crawling back to me. I finished for him. I deserve that, he whispers. But this isn't about me or what I deserve. It's about Lily. I flip through more pages, seeing blood work from 3 different hospitals, consultation notes from specialists across the state. Why all the different facilities? Brad shifts uncomfortably. We've been trying everything. Second opinions, clinical trials, alternative treatment centers. Nothing's working. The cancer is spreading too fast. And I'm supposedly the only compatible donor? He slides another paper toward me. HLA typing results showing a 10/10ths match between my markers and Lily's. Full siblings have the best chance of matching. We didn't expect it to be you, but the testing doesn't lie. I laugh bitterly. So let me get this straight. You two have an affair, destroy my life, disappear for weeks, and now you want me to undergo a painful medical procedure to save her? Please. Brad's eyes fill with tears. I know we have no right to ask. You're damn right you don't. I stand up, pacing around my kitchen. And this timeline doesn't make sense. Lily said your affair started last Christmas, 8 months ago. But these papers show she was diagnosed 9 months ago. Brad looks down at his hands. We lied about the affair. What? There was no affair. Not the way we told you. I freeze, staring at him. What are you talking about? When Lily was diagnosed, she was terrified. We both were. The doctors immediately said a bone marrow transplant might eventually be necessary, and family members are the best potential donors. So you've been planning this for 9 months? The betrayal feels fresh all over again. No, not like that. Brad stands, his thin frame looking fragile in my kitchen light. We tried everything else first. Chemo, radiation, experimental drugs. Nothing worked. When the doctors said a transplant was her only option, we tested everyone. Our parents, cousins, even distant relatives. And nobody matched? Nobody was close enough. Then her doctor suggested you might be the best chance, being her full sibling. I shake my head, trying to process this. So you fabricated an affair to what? Make me hate you? How does that make any sense? Brad's face crumples. We thought if we just asked you for the transplant, you might feel obligated but resent Lily forever. Or worse, you might say no and then feel guilty about it for the rest of your life. So instead, you decided to make me hate you both so I wouldn't feel bad about refusing? Something like that, he admits quietly. It was Lily's idea. She said, this way, if you said no, you could feel justified. And if by some miracle you said yes, it would be a true act of compassion, not obligation. That's the most twisted logic I've ever heard, I say. But something about it sounds exactly like my sister's warped way of protecting people. Brad pulls out his phone, showing me photos I haven't seen before. Lily in a hospital bed, Lily with no hair, Lily hooked up to IVs, looking nothing like the vibrant woman I grew up with. She's dying, Brad says simply. The doctors give her weeks without the transplant. I sink back into my chair, overwhelmed. Why didn't you just tell me the truth from the beginning? Because Lily wouldn't let us. She made everyone promise. She didn't want to be the reason you put your life on hold or underwent a painful procedure. She'd rather you hate her than sacrifice for her. It sounds like my sister, stubborn, proud, and stupidly self-sacrificing. But something still doesn't add up. Show me everything, I demand. Every test, every treatment, every hospital visit. I want to see it all. Brad nods eagerly, pulling more folders from his bag. For the next 2 hours, I pore over medical records dating back 9 months. The progression of the disease is clear. First diagnosis, initial treatment failure, secondary approaches, experimental protocols, and finally, the recommendation for bone marrow transplant as a last resort. My medical training confirms what I'm seeing. Lily's condition is critical. Without intervention, she won't survive the month. Where is she now? I ask finally. At my parents' house. She didn't want to come, didn't want to pressure you. I close the last folder, my mind racing. I need to see her, and I need to speak with her oncologist directly. Brad nods quickly. Of course, anything you need. As we head toward the door, I notice something that stops me cold. A hospital bracelet peeking out from Brad's jacket pocket. It has Lily's name, but the patient number doesn't match any of the records I just reviewed. What's this? I ask, pulling it from his pocket. Brad pales visibly. It's from her last admission. This number doesn't match her patient ID on any of these records. They must have made a mistake, he says too quickly. I narrow my eyes. Brad, what aren't you telling me? He hesitates just long enough for me to know there's more to this story. Much more. I told you everything important, he insists, not meeting my eyes. No, I say firmly. You haven't, and I'm not agreeing to anything until I know exactly what's going on. After Brad leaves, I spend the night poring over Lily's medical records. Something still doesn't add up. The next morning, I call Dr. Sharma, an oncologist I've worked with for years at Memorial Hospital. I need your professional opinion on a bone marrow donation, I say when she answers. This sounds personal, Dr. Sharma replies. Is everything okay? I explain the situation without mentioning names. Dr. Sharma listens patiently, then sighs. The procedure itself carries minimal risk for the donor. She explains, pain, fatigue, some bruising, but I'm concerned about the circumstances you're describing. Multiple facilities, inconsistent documentation. That's unusual for legitimate cancer treatment. That's what I thought, I say, feeling a chill. My phone buzzes with another call from Brad's mother, the 5th one this morning. I've been ignoring them, but the desperation in their voicemails is escalating. Please, his mother had sobbed in her last message. I know what they did was unforgivable, but Lily is dying. You're her only hope. After hanging up with Dr. Sharma, I remember something. Brad and I still share an old joint checking account that I never closed after the divorce. I log in, expecting to find it empty, but instead discover a series of bizarre transactions from the past 8 months. Multiple payments to something called Novatech Pharmaceuticals, a company I've never heard of. Thousands of dollars, each labeled simply as treatment. I'm still staring at my laptop screen when my doorbell rings. It's Brad, looking even more haggard than yesterday. I forgot some paperwork, he says, holding up a manila folder. Come in, I reply, stepping aside. Your car's making a strange noise. You might want to check it out. It's a lie. But as soon as Brad heads to the kitchen with his folder, I slip outside and approach his car. The passenger door is unlocked. I slide in, heart pounding as I open the glove compartment. Inside, I find a stack of papers labeled Experimental Protocol X247, Human Trials. Clipped to it is a consent form with Lily's signature, but the patient name at the top reads Jane Wilson. I quickly snap photos with my phone before returning everything and hurrying back inside. Brad is arranging papers on my kitchen table when I return. Find anything interesting out there? He asks without looking up. Just checking if you needed help with your car. I lie smoothly. Listen, I've been thinking about what you said. I want to see Lily. Brad's face brightens. Really? That would mean so much to her. 2 hours later, we're at his parents' house. Lily looks terrible, thin, pale, with dark circles under her eyes. She's wearing a hospital gown, and I notice something strange. 3 different medical bracelets on her wrist, each with a different patient name. Why do you have these? I ask, lifting her arm gently. Brad steps forward quickly. They're from different hospitals. Sometimes they don't remove them between transfers. Different names, though? I press. Administrative errors. Brad snaps, suddenly defensive. The healthcare system is a mess. You know that. Lily's eyes flicker between us nervously. Can we not do this now? She whispers. I'm so tired. I back off, but my suspicions are growing by the minute. When I excuse myself to use the bathroom, I text my colleague Vanessa, who works in oncology at Riverside Medical Center. Does the name Lily Harmon ring any bells? Cancer patient, possibly leukemia? Her response comes quickly. Yes, but not leukemia. She was in for experimental immunotherapy last month. Dr. Collins's special project. Why? My hands start shaking. I return to the living room where Brad is adjusting Lily's IV. I spoke with Vanessa from Riverside. I say casually, watching Brad's reaction. His head snaps up, eyes widening. You had no right to discuss Lily's case with anyone. She says Lily doesn't have leukemia. The room goes silent. Lily looks away, tears forming in her eyes. That's ridiculous, Brad insists, but his voice wavers. Vanessa isn't even her doctor. Then let's go through these records together, I say, pulling out the folder I brought, because I found some interesting inconsistencies. Treatment dates that overlap at different hospitals, diagnoses that contradict each other, and why does Novatech Pharmaceuticals keep showing up in your bank statements? Brad's face hardens. You had no right to look at our finances. It's still my account too, I counter. What are you not telling me, Brad? What's really wrong with Lily? Lily suddenly sits up, her face contorted in pain. Stop it. Both of you, she gasps, clutching her chest. Then her eyes roll back and she collapses onto the couch. Lily, Brad shouts, rushing to her side. My nursing instincts take over. I check her pulse, rapid but present, and her breathing is shallow. We need to get her to a hospital, I say, already reaching for my phone. Now, 20 minutes later, we're in the emergency room at Memorial Hospital. Dr. Reeves, the attending physician, pulls me aside after examining Lily. You're a nurse at this hospital, correct? He asks quietly. I nod. And you're the patient's sister? Yes. What's going on? Dr. Reeves glances at Brad, who's pacing nervously by Lily's bed. I've ordered some tests, but I'm concerned about what I'm seeing. These records you brought in. He taps the folder. They don't match her current presentation, and there's something else. He pulls up her blood work on a tablet and shows me. This isn't consistent with leukemia, he says. Not even close. But it is consistent with someone who's been subjected to multiple experimental treatments, and these antibody levels. He points to a section of the report. I've only seen this pattern in one context before. What context? I ask, my mouth dry. Dr. Reeves looks me directly in the eyes. Unauthorized pharmaceutical trials, the kind that aren't approved for human testing in the United States. My stomach drops as everything starts clicking into place. The multiple hospitals, the different patient names, the experimental protocol documents in Brad's car. I need to tell you something, Dr. Reeves continues, his voice barely above a whisper. Your sister was admitted here 3 months ago under a different name. I recognized her immediately. What was she here for? I ask, though I'm afraid I already know the answer. Cell harvesting, he says grimly, but not for leukemia treatment. Before he can explain further, alarms start blaring from Lily's room. We rush in to find her seizing, her body rigid on the hospital bed as Brad stands frozen in panic. Get him out of here, Dr. Reeves shouts to a nurse as the emergency team floods the room. As they work to stabilize Lily, I grab Brad's arm and drag him into the hallway. What the hell have you done to my sister? I demand, shoving him against the wall. His face crumples, and in that moment, I know I'm about to hear the truth at last. The emergency team stabilizes Lily after 20 tense minutes. Dr. Reeves emerges from the room, his scrubs damp with sweat. She's stable for now, he tells us, but I need to speak with both of you immediately. He leads us to a small consultation room and closes the door. The fluorescent lights make Brad look even more sickly, his skin taking on a greenish tinge. I've reviewed Miss Harmon's complete blood work, Dr. Reeves says, placing a tablet on the table between us. She doesn't have leukemia, she has Goldman's syndrome. I freeze, recognizing the name immediately. That's an extremely rare autoimmune disease. Yes, Dr. Reeves confirms. One that affects fewer than 200 people worldwide. It's characterized by progressive immune system deterioration and eventual multi-organ failure. Brad slumps in his chair, not meeting my eyes. What I don't understand, Dr. Reeves continues, is why her records indicate leukemia treatment when her blood work clearly shows markers for Goldman's, and why she's been admitted to 5 different hospitals under 3 different names. I turn to Brad, fury building inside me. Tell me the truth now. Brad's shoulders sag in defeat. Novatech Pharmaceuticals is developing a treatment for Goldman's, he says quietly. They've been running trials for 2 years, but the FDA won't approve human testing in the United States because of the experimental nature of the protocol. So you've been taking her to black market research facilities. I say, the pieces finally clicking together. That's what those different hospital bracelets were about. He nods miserably. The treatment requires harvesting healthy T cells from a close genetic match, then modifying them to recognize and repair the damaged immune system. And I'm the match, I say, my voice hollow. You weren't asking for bone marrow. You were planning to harvest my cells repeatedly for this experimental treatment. It's shown promise in early trials, Brad whispers. Lily's participated in 5 rounds already, but they need fresh cells each time. The modified cells attack her system initially, then begin the repair process. Dr. Reeves looks horrified. That's incredibly dangerous. The cellular modification protocol you're describing could trigger catastrophic immune responses. It has, Brad admits. That's why she collapsed today. The last round nearly killed her, but then she started showing improvement before relapsing. I stand up, pacing the small room. Why the elaborate lie about leukemia? Why not just tell me the truth? Brad finally meets my eyes. Because what they're doing isn't just experimental. It's illegal in the United States. And because I'm not just trying to save Lily, I'm heavily invested in Novatech. The revelation hits me like a physical blow. You're using us as lab rats for profit? It's not like that, he protests weakly. I invested after Lily got sick. They needed funding to continue the research. How much? I demand. He looks away. Almost everything I have. $4 million. Dr. Reeves looks between us. I'm obligated to report this to the medical ethics board. Wait, Brad says desperately. Please, Lily will die without continued treatment. I pull out my phone and show them the photos I took of the documents in Brad's car. Experimental Protocol X 247, human trials. Patient name, Jane Wilson. That's one of the fake identities you've been using for Lily, isn't it? Brad nods, defeated. And the affair? I ask, my voice cracking. Was that a lie too? A long pause fills the room before Brad speaks. No, that part was real. Lily and I. It happened during a conference last year. Then 3 months later, she was diagnosed. The betrayal feels fresh all over again. A wound reopened just when I thought it couldn't hurt any worse. My phone buzzes. It's a text from my mother. Call me immediately. We need to talk about Brad and Lily. I step into the hallway and dial her number. Mom? Oh, thank God, she breathes. I've been trying to reach you. Your father and I have been worried sick. You knew, I say, the realization dawning. You knew what they were doing. A pause. Not everything, she admits, but we suspected something wasn't right. The way they kept taking Lily to different hospitals, the secrecy around her treatment. Brad's parents let something slip about experimental protocols. Why didn't you tell me? We tried, she says, her voice small. Remember when we came to visit last month and asked about Lily's unusual treatment? You shut down the conversation. I vaguely recall the awkward dinner, how I'd changed the subject when they brought up Lily. I'd been too hurt, too angry to discuss yes, my sister. I have to go. I tell her. I'll call you back. When I return to the consultation room, Brad is showing Dr. Reeves more documents on his tablet. These are the trial results, he's saying. The treatment has shown a 38% improvement in patients who completed all 7 rounds. At what cost? Dr. Reeves asks. These side effects are catastrophic. She's dying anyway, Brad says desperately. This is her only chance. I sit back down, my mind racing. I want to speak with the doctors at Novatech. Brad looks up in surprise. You're considering helping? I'm considering understanding exactly what's going on before I make any decisions. I correct him. Brad pulls out his phone, but before he can dial, I grab his wrist. One more thing. What did you mean when you said you weren't just trying to save Lily? What else is this about? His eyes shift away, that familiar tell when he's hiding something. Tell me, I demand. If the treatment works, if it gets approved eventually, he hesitates. The patent would be worth billions. As an early investor, I'd own 12% of the company. So this is about money, I say flatly. It's about saving Lily and securing our future, he insists. Is that so wrong? Before I can answer, he leans forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. Besides, you're not exactly in a position to claim moral high ground. What is that supposed to mean? Brad's expression hardens. The Wilson patient incident at Memorial last year, the one you accidentally witnessed but never reported. My blood runs cold. He's referring to an incident I stumbled upon a doctor falsifying data in a clinical trial that resulted in a patient's death. I'd been sworn to secrecy as part of the hospital's internal investigation. That has nothing to do with this, I hiss. Doesn't it? Brad's eyes narrow. Help Lily, or perhaps the medical board might receive an anonymous tip about what you saw and failed to report. The threat hangs between us, ugly and explicit. Dr. Reeves clears his throat, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of our conversation. I need to check on my patient, he says, standing. I'll give you 2 a moment. As soon as the door closes, I turn to Brad, my voice shaking with rage. You would blackmail me to save your investment. To save your sister, he corrects, but his eyes betray him. And yes, I'll do whatever it takes. In that moment, I see Brad clearly for perhaps the first time, not just as my cheating ex-husband, but as a desperate, morally bankrupt man willing to sacrifice anyone for his own ends. I'll help Lily, I say finally, but not for you, and not through your black market research company. We're going to do this the right way. There is no right way, Brad argues. The FDA won't. There are legitimate clinical trials for Goldman's. I cut him off. Dr. Sharma mentioned one just last week. Approved protocols, ethical oversight, real medical professionals. Those will take too long, Brad insists. Lily doesn't have a choice anymore. I interrupt, standing up. Neither do you. I'm reporting Novatech to the Medical Ethics Board, and you're going to tell them everything you know. Brad's face contorts with anger. If you do that, I'll make sure everyone knows about your involvement in the Wilson cover-up. I lean down, my face inches from his. Go ahead. I'd rather lose my license than let you use me or my sister as pawns in your get-rich-quick scheme. I walk out of the consultation room, my mind made up. Whatever happens next, I'm done being manipulated by Brad's lies. It's time for the truth to come out, all of it. I walk out of the hospital with my mind racing, phone clutched tightly in my hand. My finger hovers over the report button on the Medical Ethics Board website. One tap and everything changes. For Lily, for Brad, for me. I press it before I can second-guess myself. The next morning, I meet with Dr. Sharma and Dr. Reeves in a conference room at Memorial Hospital. They've brought in Dr. Winters, head of the hospital's ethics committee, and a representative from the state medical board. I've reviewed all the evidence, Dr. Winters says, sliding a folder across the table. Novatech Pharmaceuticals has been operating multiple unauthorized trial sites across 3 states. What they're doing isn't just unethical, it's criminal. And my sister? I ask, my voice smaller than I intended. Dr. Sharma's expression softens. Goldman syndrome is serious, but there are legitimate treatment options. Massachusetts General is running an FDA-approved clinical trial specifically for patients like Lily. Will they take her? I called the lead researcher this morning, Dr. Sharma says. They're willing to evaluate her immediately. The protocol involves stem cell therapy combined with targeted immunosuppression. It's showing promising results without the extreme risks of Novatech's approach. Relief washes over me. Thank you. My phone buzzes with a text from Brad. They're arresting me. This is your fault. I ignore it and focus on what matters, saving my sister. 3 days later, I'm sitting beside Lily's hospital bed at Massachusetts General. Her color has improved, and she's awake for longer periods. The doctors have started her on the approved treatment protocol, and her initial response is encouraging. I'm sorry, she whispers, her fingers weakly squeezing mine. I never wanted to drag you into this. Why didn't you just tell me the truth from the beginning? I ask. I would have helped you. Tears slide down her cheeks. Brad convinced me you'd refuse because of what happened between us. And then, when the first treatments failed, he got desperate. We both did. She looks away. He kept saying his investment would pay off, that we'd all be rich when the treatment worked. Did you know he was planning to blackmail me? She shakes her head, looking genuinely horrified. No, I swear. I knew he was desperate about the money he'd invested, but I never thought he'd go that far. I believe her. The Lily I grew up with, the sister I loved before Brad came between us, would never have approved such tactics. The door opens, and Brad's parents walk in hesitantly. They look older somehow, burdened by the weight of everything that's happened. May we speak with you? His mother asks, her eyes red-rimmed. We step into the hallway, and his father immediately breaks down. We're so sorry, he sobs. We knew something wasn't right, but Brad assured us it was all legitimate. He said the treatment was Lily's only hope. Did you know about the blackmail, the threats? I ask. His mother shakes her head. We found out yesterday when the FBI showed us the evidence they'd gathered. We had no idea he'd gone so far. She reaches for my hand. We've spoken with our lawyer. We're going to make sure Lily's medical expenses are covered, regardless of what happens with Brad. Thank you, I say, surprised by their decency in the midst of this nightmare. Later that evening, I get a call from Detective Rivera with the Pharmaceutical Fraud Division. We've made multiple arrests, she tells me. The CEO of Novatech and 3 senior executives are in custody. They were running similar schemes with at least least 14 other patients, all with rare conditions and desperate families. And Brad, charged with medical fraud, coercion, and conspiracy. The prosecutor is considering adding attempted extortion for the blackmail threats. She pauses. We found recordings of your conversations on his phone. He was documenting everything, probably to protect himself if things went south. Those recordings will show I didn't know what was happening. I say, relief flooding through me. Exactly. You're cleared of any involvement. 2 weeks later, I'm sitting in a support group I've started for families affected by Novatech schemes. 6 other people share similar stories, loved ones with rare diseases, promises of miracle cures, financial and emotional manipulation. They targeted our vulnerabilities, says Maria, whose husband has a rare neurological condition. They knew exactly what buttons to push to make us desperate enough to try anything. That's why this group is so important, I tell them. We need to support each other through the aftermath and make sure this doesn't happen to other families. After the meeting, I visit Lily at the hospital. Her doctors are cautiously optimistic about her progress. The legitimate treatment is working slowly but steadily. I spoke with my supervisor at Memorial. I tell her as I adjust her pillows. I'm going back to nursing next month, but with a new focus. I'm joining the patient advocacy team. Lily smiles weakly. Using what happened to us to help others? Exactly. I take her hand. Someone needs to stand between vulnerable patients and those who would exploit them. We sit in comfortable silence for a while. The beeping of monitors, a reassuring rhythm in the background. Our relationship is different now, scarred but healing. The betrayal with Brad will always be part of our history, but it no longer defines us. They offered me a plea deal, Lily says suddenly. Immunity if I testify against Brad and Novatech. Are you going to take it? She nods. I need to make this right. I let fear cloud my judgment, and I hurt the one person who's always been there for me. She squeezes my hand. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Just focus on getting better, I tell her. That's all I want. As I drive home that evening, I think about the strange journey that brought us here. How a desperate lie unraveled into something far more sinister than I could have imagined. How the truth, painful as it was, ultimately saved my sister's life. Brad's betrayal taught me something valuable. Sometimes the people closest to us are capable of unimaginable deception, but it also reminded me of my own strength, my ability to see through manipulation and stand firm in my principles, even when threatened. I park outside my house and sit for a moment, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Tomorrow, I'll visit Lily again. I'll attend the preliminary hearing for Brad's case. I'll continue building my support group for families affected by medical exploitation. But tonight, I'll simply breathe, grateful that the worst is behind us and that some form of justice is finally being served.